Hello, welcome. This is Corey Angelot for the End of Slavery Summit. I'm here with Evan Wade. We're going to be talking about how critical thinking ends slavery. Hello, Evan Wade. Could you introduce yourself?
Hello, yes, thank you. My name is Evan Wade.
Yeah, so tell us how you got involved and what made you want to reach out.
I have been on this path for decades, just knowing that there's something not quite right about the way things are going. Since I was old enough to vote, um, I didn't take me long to realize that voting it doesn't do anything, doesn't help.
Hmm.
Uh, So, and that is the beginning of where what led me on this path to want to know the meaning, the etymology of words. I stumbled on several videos of yours and Mark Passio and Larkin Rose and Patrick Smith, and you know the more I listened to them, the more they made sense. And it's not, they always made sense, and that was the reason I listened to them more and more.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy uh, thought provoking. Um, that that is what it does. It is thought provoking, and so I enjoy that.
Me
And that's
too.
what I try. I'm sorry.
Me too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
appreciate
and
it.
I try to, and so I try to inspire that as well. I feel like I'm coming to realize also, or have been coming to realize for a long time, that you really can't do any of this for anyone else. You can show them the cover of the book, but they have to read the book, you
Hmm.
know, in a, to say that metaphorically.
Yeah, they have to go through the journey themselves, doing
Yeah.
kind of uh retracing your steps in a way, but in their own experience, right? Because like you're not them. You
Yeah.
can't be in their shoes. But I feel like perhaps, we're all living in the same reality, with perhaps the same truths. We may all live in different environments, but perhaps we can come to similar conclusions if there's something like slavery happening still to this day in different forms and it's affecting everybody. Then I would say I think most people should be able to recognize it if they're looking for it. Like you said, right? They have to take that, maybe that first step into doing it. What would you say was like your first step into the knowledge? Was there like a breaking point or something that really?
I think it for me. I think it's been more of a slow, steady, always knowing,
Mhm.
but it wasn't in the forefront of my thoughts. It was kind of a nagging thing in the back of my mind that just kept gnawing and gnawing until I was like, I had to start paying attention to it. And
Okay.
uh, the whole thing about paying attention, time and attention being two currencies that are like more valuable than uh, a fiat currency that's used to manipulate. And it gets deep there, but and complex. And I feel like I'm not. I don't understand very complex things all that well. I understand simple things very well, I think. Maybe more so than the average person. I think that there's more profundity in some things that are very simple than what others might see. And that's being vague, I understand, but
No, I appreciate that. I think simplicity is better in many ways. We run too far into complexity, we lose ourselves, and everybody gets too confused, and we go into these rabbit holes, and everybody, it's semantics.
yeah, I agree.
So, you talked about voting and how that was something in particular. You saw that voting was not like that essential. So maybe you can give us a little synopsis as to why it is you understand that voting is not that helpful for us.
Yeah, well, yeah, thank you. I probably voted 2 or 3 times ever, you know?
Hmm.
And just it just seemed like such a show, like, and you hear the saying, "All the world's a stage," and then when you apply it to the world of politics, it takes on more meaning, really a deeper meaning, and I feel like that's, what I was beginning to see, um that even though there might be some people who mean well, but I also am, you could label me a conspiracy theorist, but it does. I mean, especially when and I apologize for uh, stumbling on words, but I like to go back and read quotes from like presidents and people in further back in history, and kind of string these quotes together to come up with a scenario or a chain of events, or a plan, so it seems. And uh, I can see how people don't see the plan, but I think there is a plan.
So I was just curious, yeah, and you said, you're a conspiracy theorist. I think that's a term that's used nowadays kind of to deter people who, just question the status quo and like to question things. So, I can call myself a conspiracy theorist and I just like to question things too. But it
Yeah,
doesn't that's not necessarily a bad thing. Right? When you say conspiracy theorist, you're just questioning the world, are you not?
correct. Yeah, I am, and maybe it's more of a. I mean, theories are later proven to be true, then they're not theories, they're conspiracies, you know? But, uh, there are conspiracies to do good things, and I believe that's what I am on the side of. Uh, a conspiracy for people to work together voluntarily to reverse this um, path that we're on, this deteriorating society, I guess. Want to build it instead of tear it down. And, there are all these laws being made. I mean, that's all you're going to get when you vote. When you vote, more laws are made, and that doesn't help. It hasn't helped. It didn't help our great grandparents. It didn't help our grandparents. I can see that, and it's only gotten worse since then. And people are becoming aware, and that is what I want. I want people to become aware, and the more people become aware, the less effect. I think it's Larkin Rose that said something about tyrants can't be voted out; they can be ignored, and and they'll go away that way. But you can't vote them out.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, they rely
and
on public support.
right, right. And if you ignore them, then they go away. Um, yeah, then they have the problem, and they're not. These tyrants are very intelligent. I think that Mark Passio is onto something when he says that these tyrants are masters of psychology, and they know how to trick people, and that's how they do it. They're masterfully tricking people into doing these things to ourselves. Well,
Mm.
to themselves. I mean, I may still be tricked into doing some of these things because I'm unaware, but once I become aware, I will stop doing those things.
Yeah. And then it becomes simple, right? When you say it's like it becomes
Yeah.
simple after a while because you've already taken that journey. You already understand it. At first, it was probably hard, though. I would assume, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've always felt like this. I don't fit in with these people who are voting, and I never really said much about it. I accept that I don't think you're helping anything. It's not
Yeah.
doing anything. Look around and see how things just keep
Yeah. Writing
deteriorating.
your name on the piece of
Now we've got
paper or just,
now yeah, we've got the Patriot Act now. We've got the NDAA. It's like, come on, man, really?
yeah.
And these uh and I haven't read these things. I don't think I have to. I don't have to. That's
Mm.
like another I feel like that's another part of the trick to get you to read the 9/11 report, to get you to read the NDAA or the I don't need to read those things. Those
Yeah.
they don't apply to me. They
Yeah.
don't
That's their
because
documents.
right yeah, they and there's the whole straw man thing. It's like, are you this person that's on your birth certificate? No, I'm a man. And it's yeah, I'm just becoming aware of these things and but see, even becoming aware of that doesn't and there's it feels like there's still a trick there because you have to know these things and that's they're tricking you into having to study
Yeah.
their system.
Right. Man-made stuff. It's like you get wrapped into it, and it's all just stuff. It's all just paperwork, right? It's all just papers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, legalese
Mhm.
I feel is designed to confuse people.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you, like, on the whole birth certificate thing, and I've looked into it too, and the only problem with that I see is, like, again, like you said, it's like it's a lot of emphasis on paperwork. What about the fact that we're just free? Like, hello, we're free, right? We're human beings. We're not born out of the womb with chains on us. Like, we're just free. Like, there has to be
Yeah,
some point in time where we just say we're free. No, we don't have to come up with like a whole declaration of why we're free. Like, we just say two
right.
words, we're free.
And I mean, it's taken me until just the past couple of years, to formulate the most simple sentence of what freedom is. And to me, okay, I think freedom is just doing any ethical thing without asking permission and not doing unethical things. That is freedom. I mean, that is how you achieve freedom. You can do anything you want as long as it's ethical, as long as you're not stealing, hurting,
Mm,
committing fraud.
yeah, because freedom is a form of property, so you have to be responsible for it ultimately.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, responsibility is another thing that voting falsely, you're trying to give your responsibility away when you vote, and you can't do it. It's still your responsibility.
Yeah. So like
You
if
can't
we
give your responsibility away. So,
yeah, if we break down like what we said before, like you said these laws don't apply to me, right? We look a little bit deeper at that. Like why is it that they don't apply to you or they don't really apply to us even if they do claim to apply to us, right?
exactly, exactly.
It's
Because
yeah.
it brings me, and I recently became friends with Shepherd uh, from the Shepherd the Voluntarist, in which I saw you. I think did you do an interview with him? No,
No.
you did one with Patrick. You
Yes.
did one with Patrick, right? And which I thought was good. I like that. But so I recently became friends with Shepherd, and the we the people, the consent of the governed, uh, and the whole "we the people" thing are two simple phrases that are, if you don't think about them, I think you can get duped pretty easily. But if you think about them, then it's pretty easy to not get duped, because we the people, when you say "we the people," we think this, we think that, we've decided this. It's like, I'm not part of that "we." I wasn't around then. Not only that, I haven't signed any document that says I agree with this. And that also implies that society has a single mind. Society doesn't have a single mind. Society is individual men and women thinking for themselves.
Right.
So society doesn't have an individual mind. And then consent of the governed is just such, it seems like an oxymoron, because consent is voluntary and governed is not.
Hmm.
If you're controlled, do you have consent? Because that's what governed is, right? Controlled.
Right.
And so, do you have consent if you are being controlled? Um, and well, and to take it one little step further, consent is revocable. And if it's not revocable, then it wasn't consent. And that's what these, statists feel like they have the right to enforce their law on you, uh, because supposedly you consented, but I didn't.
Mhm. And they're forcing you to, which makes a claim
Yeah,
upon your life and property.
and the
Slavery.
only and the only uh, justifiable force is to defend against violence. That's the difference between force and violence. Force is what you use against violence. That's it. Violence is using force initially, like against someone. That is
Yeah.
violence. So, yeah, that's good to define too.
Yeah.
Especially when you've got a group of people calling themselves government, who are in bed with other groups of people who are, CEOs of large corporations, who have power because they have money. And even money isn't, the money that is being used today, or since the, well, I don't know, maybe, but at least since 1913.
Yeah.
um, and there's I can't remember. I think it might be the 10th Amendment YouTube channel that brought up a good several point, like 8 quotes by some founding fathers about paper money, the use of paper money. Really made sense. Um, Maybe if I could send you that link and you can drop it.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot you can learn from the past, and we can't say that everybody was correct. I mean, nobody is entirely correct. Nobody's
right.
perfect, right? The founding fathers maybe were moving in a better direction. Doesn't mean it's the best, because they were just coming off of like the most tyrannical government, the queen and the king and
Hmm.
this monarchy. So it's like getting out of that is a tough process. And did we even really get out of that? It's
Right.
a it's a whole thing. So that's why, a lot of the ideas you were going into, you mentioned statists, and you're referring to people who believe in government as statists, people who believe in the
Voters.
legitimacy of rulers, right? And what you guys created, and what Patrick Smith and a lot of other people created, was the Declaration of Individual Independence, right? So this is kind of like an offshoot, a different version of the Declaration of Independence, which is funny because I also remade that as well, and there's other people who have also remade it for different purposes. But this one is really nice. At the end, it says, And for the support of this declaration, I agree and pledge that by my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor, I will hold sacrosanct the agency, consent, and property of others, likewise, expecting, requiring, and demanding the same be afforded me. I own myself, I lead myself. So that's the end of the declaration. And if people want to read it, they can check it out. We'll have a download for them.
Nice. Yes, I appreciate you putting that in there too. It there are a lot of other almost legalese. It almost goes there.
Right.
With the vocabulary that Patrick Smith has. I'm impressed, and I'm still learning. Still, but yeah, it really hit home with me. And so did Humphrey. I'm sorry, Shepherd the Voluntarius. His book, uh, Anarchy Exposed, I think is the name of it.
Okay.
Was I mean, it's just it's a short, to the point, and the last three, and they're only like a page and a half per chapter. The last three chapters, like 9 through 12, are just so identify, like you can identify with what he's saying. It's very kind of, uh, pragmatic way of getting his point across. So
So is it going over like how anarchy actually works in reality because it's freedom, it just means no rulers, or is it
uh,
what
he
does it
kind of
mean?
takes care of that in the first, in the first couple of chapters. But it gets more into like, he was a police officer, which a cop or whatever you want to call him, and he just took the time to think about what he was doing, and then in this book he explains, and I wish I had it with me right now. I could go get it. It's upstairs, but yeah, I should have had that.
It's all good. I'll have it on the screen for people, and that kind of reminds me of Larkin Rose's book, What Anarchy Isn't.
Yeah, and so when I ordered Shepard's book, I thought that I was ordering that and Larkin's first book. Um, what is that?
The Iron Web,
No, no, I'm sorry. It's not his first book. Then.
The Most Dangerous
It's
Superstition.
The Most Dangerous Superstition. And what I got instead was War is a Racket, um, by Smedley Butler,
Mm,
General Smedley Butler, and which is also good.
okay.
But so I want to get both of the first two books that you mentioned by Larkin, um,
Hmm.
What Anarchy Isn't, and The Most Dangerous Superstition. And then I would like to get your book as well. That looks uh,
Yeah.
pretty thorough. So, and then I would like to, maybe even before I get those, but at some point, I want to put together one of my own. It may be short, it may be long. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I have a tutorial for people who want to do that on my channel. Actually,
Yeah.
you can self-publish for free using some tools if you know what you're doing. You can make it happen for sure. And I'd actually be glad. I'd be willing to give you a free copy of my book. I'll just send it your way. I have no problem with that.
Oh man. Wow. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, we'll do that after the interview. So let's go a little bit backtrack here, if you don't mind, because I want to go a little
Uh,
bit deeper into statism and ending slavery, right? Because this is kind of like the main topic, and kind of going deeper into critical thinking. How can we make the jump from critical thinking to ending slavery? Because when people think critical thinking, they're not gonna think like, "Oh, let's end
right.
slavery." But
Well,
yeah,
okay. So one of the one of the things that really hit home with me was I saw a short video. It was actually it was about 20 minutes long, and it was Mark Passio, and he was hanging out at I'm not sure whose house it was. It might have been his own. It might have been his friend's, but it was he and a friend. And I found an even shorter version of that where he talks about this really important concept, and that is that freedom comes before life. It is the most important thing, because what good is life? What is life without freedom of choice? Without, what is it? It's slavery. I mean, and peaceful slavery is not living. It's not really living. You know, you become the tool of another entity,
Hmm.
and so, and I know that's it's simple, but it's a critical thought, and it's like elementary. It's very elementary, and it surprises me that so few recognize that elemental thought.
Yeah, that they own themselves, that freedom is that important. Yeah, and
Uh,
maybe it's because, we weren't taught these concepts in school, we don't talk about morality much. You hear on the news a whole bunch about politics and such, but nothing about morality.
I agree, and I would also recommend John Taylor Gatto, um, school teacher, who had a lot of really eye-opening things to say about public education. And education and schooling are completely separate. They are not the same.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, because it
yeah,
doesn't have to come from the schools, and those schools are operated by what? You
right.
know, the school
And
taxes.
right. And it's kind of weird that they don't teach you to do how to do taxes. Maybe they do, but I bet they do actually.
They gotta make sure they get their funds, but and that's unfortunate. It's like education requires initiation of force, like, that's essentially what they're saying if they're gonna be taxing people, for education, for everybody's education, like, "Oh, you don't have any kids, but you live here. You have to contribute to the school. Oh, the school's teaching this class, you don't want them learning that, but you have no choice but to participate." And, some of the parents are just going along with it, they're going to school board meetings, they're getting mad, but maybe at some point in time they'd have to just take their kids out of that system, right? Help the kid critically think for themselves.
Right. So I think it's that brings me to some quotes I'd like to read off to you if you don't
Sure.
mind.
Sure.
All
Actually,
right.
I was pulling up a quote too. Uh, who wants to go first?
Oh, go ahead. I'll find these while you read
Okay.
yours.
Sure. So, you mentioned Mark Passio. We talked about with freedom in life and property. That's actually the last quote in my own book on Slavery Gone for Good. I have Mark Passio's quote at the very, very end, and it just so happens you brought it up. So it was really easy for me to just pull up. It says, "Freedom comes before everything, including life. It isn't life, freedom, property. It's freedom, life, property. That's the correct order. Life without freedom isn't worth living because life without freedom is slavery. Most people are so fearful and attached to life that they would give up freedom to have safety. No amount of safety is worth the loss of freedom. No amount of even health is worth the loss of freedom. Dangerous, unhealthy freedom is still more important than a life where you are perfectly safe and perfectly healthy and enslaved. As soon as some crisis comes down that threatens their safety or health, they're immediately willing to sacrifice their freedom in the name of safety or health. You have to be willing to die. Liberty or death means liberty or death." So, and if we ask, like, what is critical thinking, right? Because I mean, we want to keep it pretty simple for people. I would assume most people would know what critical thinking is, and some people may not know how to critically think. But of course, we can't think for them. But that's why there's methods such as like the trivium, right? You might be aware of that. Mark
Yeah,
Passio uses that method. And there's different ways you can critically think. But I think the question we're asking is why, right? Why is everything happening in the world? Is it because there's people who want power, not just money, right? Because you mentioned money, but that's not necessarily what the people in power desire.
I
And what
agree. I
about the
think,
people below them? Just because there's one person who wants power, what about the hundreds of thousands of millions of people following them?
yeah, it's money. I think is just a tool, to get people to do what they want them to do. I mean, and it's pretty. That's another simple thing. It's really simple. And I think that part of why, um, well, obviously, why is so that we can uh, all be free because none of us are until we all are, um, in a sense. Um, because I want you to be free. I want everyone to be free. I don't want people to be duped, which is what is happening. People are being tricked. And yeah, statist voter, same thing. Um, and sure, there are people who think that they're going to help the community by running for an office, but I suspect that they soon find out that it does not help. Um, and there's a thing called regulatory capture, um, and I'll send you a couple of paragraphs about that as well.
Okay, yeah, and one of the other things you sent to me was about Lysander Spooner, right? The Constitution of No Authority.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that something that you like to share with people?
I would. I can't quote any of it right now,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm being a little distracted right now, but that's okay. Um, but I would like that to be dropped in the notes as well. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
and I've got several quotes, ideas, um, that I'd like to send and maybe drop that in the notes as well.
Yeah, I would love if you want to contribute to the newspaper that we're going to be starting up after the summit. Since you have a lot to contribute, just notes, material, stuff that you like to write. You can take, any length of time. People who are anonymous can even submit to the newspaper. I mean, it's a really cool method because then it allows everybody to kind of contribute to one project and we all stick together. I kind of want to make a lot more collaborative things because I think it just makes a bigger impact and allows
Yeah.
everybody to just learn and grow all together.
And that is a good way to, because instead of just saying this is how we'll do it, that's a good way to demonstrate what we mean. I know that a lot of people think that anarchy is like, oh, you just want to be on your own and not deal with other people. That's not it at all. I think that cooperation and healthy competition over coercion is the way to go. And, nobody having a monopoly on force or violence. Um, and hopefully, that would, and I'm sure that the more that people understand these things, the less violence we'll see,
Yeah.
and
Because they'll
or
be
coercion.
they'll be
Yeah,
less likely to not only not do it themselves, but to not let it happen, right?
agreed. Yeah,
They'll be
yes,
applying force against violence, as we said before. So,
exactly.
yeah, I like that critical thinking. I like how you're, sort of connecting the dots because, right, that's all we're doing is just connecting the dots and
Yeah,
delivering new perspectives, finding alternatives. It's not like it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. And and if these are common ideas that everybody deals with and common problems, I mean, it's not do we need some politician to tell it for us? Do we need some person that lives 300 years ago to tell it for us? No, not necessarily, right? If we're talking about natural ideas, freedom, this is a natural thing. If we're saying we're destined for freedom, we're saying it's natural. We're saying slavery is bad. We're saying this is not a good condition. It's not meant for humans. Then perhaps we can all understand what freedom is. We just have to take a look at it.
Yeah, another problem I suspect with public schooling is that it tends to convince people that things need to be complicated, or things that are complicated are good or something. I don't know what it is, but simplicity and the profundity of simplicity is not well understood. It
Mhm.
becomes it becomes elusive, and because the I don't know how to put it. To be honest with you, uh, uh,
It's not
I do
clear and
know how to put
concise,
it, but
right?
it takes I have trouble formulating what I want to say all on the fly. What I tend to do is, and I appreciate your inviting me to write for the paper, because I think I would do better there, because I tend to edit and re-edit until I get what I've read about. Something called parse syntax. Have you
Yes.
heard about that?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
So, which is basically formulating a sentence so that it cannot be misunderstood. It means the same thing basically backwards as it does forwards. Um, and when I first heard about that, somebody said that, and if we made laws this way, then we wouldn't need judges, because you cannot misinterpret the law if they were written with parse syntax.
Mm.
And I thought, well, that'd be a great idea at the time, and and now I'm just like, no, people just need to be good. That's
Yeah.
all.
They're
That is
finding all
all.
these different ways of saying like, "Oh, we can still have the system. We can still have our slavery ultimately," because they're not looking at it like slavery, right? They're not looking at it
Right.
under the
No.
moral lens.
Yeah, they think that it's necessary. Like, this is and they don't see it as even an evil. They don't even see it as an evil.
Mhm. Or
And
or
I
they'll
have a
say it's a
problem with
necessary
that.
evil.
Or yeah, I mean, yeah, and if they see it, even if they do see it as an evil, yeah, they see it as a necessary one, and no evil is necessary.
Yeah,
Um,
I know. What type of statement is that? It's like saying, murder is necessary. It's like, whoa, you're making a justification for murder? It's like, when is there a justification other than ill intent? That's not a justification.
right, and so there are these very smart people who are trying to create all these scenarios to get people to think about how, oh, these guns are killing people, but it's not guns that are killing people, and it might even be some of these scenarios are staged events. And I don't know one way or the other. But the thing that there seems to be an agenda for is to take our ability to defend ourselves, use force against violence. Um, and we need to be, because being peaceful is different than being harmless. If we're harmless, then that's not being peaceful. We're just harmless. But we need to be have the ability to do harm, because if someone is intends to do harm to us, we need to be able to use force against that violence.
To prevent our rights from being violated.
Yeah. Um,
Because everybody has rights. You got to defend those rights. Otherwise, they're not your rights, right? Somebody's trying to claim ownership over your rights or tell you what to do with your rights. It's not yours. So, in order to show that it's yours, you have to say, "This is mine. Don't take it
yeah.
from me."
Yeah. And I know some people who are saying that, the less I have, the more happy I am. And I'm just like, good for you. That's fine. I'm a musician. I play several different instruments, and I want to keep them all, you know.
Mhm.
I'm not going to own nothing and be happy. I won't be happy if I own nothing.
Right.
and that, which has been going around on the internet, with Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum guy, um, just another tyrant,
Yeah.
and the only reason he's a tyrant, and this is where it comes down to the critical thinking. This really simplifies it. The only reason he's a tyrant is because people will obey something that he says, or something he tells a president to say, or some other person in a position that other people deem as powerful.
Hmm.
Um, and it's all we have to do is ignore those folks and just create our own ethical, voluntary system, and to that which makes the involuntary, unethical system obsolete. To customize a Buckminster Fuller quote.
Yeah. Add in the good, crowd out the bad, defend your rights. It's not hard to understand, right? You're just standing upon your freedom, but then putting that into action could be a whole different scenario, right? So let's jump into that a little bit. I have action steps. I create a movement that has action steps. There's a learn button, action button. I share that with a lot of people, and I kind of encourage they use like similar symbolism or share similar knowledge because it would amplify voices. It would amplify the knowledge. But what do you think? Do you think a movement is necessary, like the one I created? Do you think people need to network more? They need to be more organized, like these political parties out there, but for a better, for a better type of cause. What do you think is necessary? Is there actions that the independent media is not doing that you think they should be doing? I figured to ask.
Huh. Um, I think more people should um, participate, and including myself. I don't find that I have a whole lot of time to contribute at the moment, or at least probably not for the next few months, because of some personal things going on. But I intend to, as soon as I am free to do those things, I am going to join that community wholeheartedly.
Hmm.
And I really, and I've been trying to do it a little bit here and there on the side. I after long days, I stay up late, and I'm editing and re-editing and trying to put something out that uh, at the beginning of this interview, we mentioned, we can you can show someone the cover of the book, but they have to read it. And so all I'm trying to do is inspire curiosity, and find different ways to do it. Um, and I'm sure everybody has limits, so I'm just trying to do that within the limits that I have. And not to say that I'm all that limited. Men and women are amazing at how almost limitless they are. We are. So um, I look forward to exercising every bit of my potential in that end, to get people to become curious about things, about certain things that they should be curious about. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're doing action right now by simply, sharing knowledge, by educating people. If that is the solution, and most people don't have that knowledge to begin with, then that is going to help within itself, and then sort of they'll kind of understand what they have to do from there. But the reason why I create a movement is to help get that knowledge out to more people and to help make the action steps even more clear to say like, okay, once enough people have this knowledge, we can at once, if we decide to, stop paying taxes or stop doing something that is a
Yeah,
statist act. That's how I view it, and I'm not sure
I
if you
agree.
agree with that.
I do agree with that, and I think it would be a good idea to try to come up with so, the at least the basics, the foundations of of an ethical system, which would make the one that most people are using obsolete. It already, anything you make that's ethical is going to make that obsolete. The it is obsolete,
Mm.
uh, but we're just not using a separate ethical system yet. And yet being the key word, because it's coming. It is coming.
It's destined, yeah. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of people working toward different ways of fixing the system, like you said, some people through legalese, some people through parse syntax, but really, are they questioning the underlying moral foundation? Like, the whole reason why we're doing it, right, is because of morality or because of the human destiny. So if they're not looking at that and they lose the focus of that, they could change things, they might make some good impacts, but are they getting to the root cause? Are they going to completely change what needs to be changed? Right? I mean, that's what I question very often. So maybe, it doesn't hurt to get involved with them and just to say like, hey, here's some knowledge that you're not looking at, hold them accountable and introduce the knowledge, because if they don't know about it, then who
Right.
will bring it to their attention? I don't think it hurts to get involved with like the common law assemblies, with the birth certificate and the sovereigns movement, and getting involved with all the resources you can to promote that moral cause that to be right.
Just, I think bringing awareness to those things is very helpful. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's key. I don't know if it's key. It might be key. I don't know. But I think bringing awareness to those things, it I think is helpful. And that way, well, just because it brings awareness to people being duped, and that's um if you can be duped, if you can't, if you don't acknowledge the possibility of being duped, then you're likely to be easily duped.
Hmm. Yeah.
You
You're not
know?
you're not aware around you too. You're not just aware of this knowledge that we're talking about. You're not aware of the world around you to realize that you are being duped, or that there's people being duped, or there's people, being breached upon. So, um, so yeah, if that summarizes, your thoughts on the action side of things, if there's anything else you want to mention on that, is there anything else that we haven't mentioned that you want to go into before I ask like the final question?
I would like to. I It would be nice if there were some people, some men and women with the resources to. I would like to know if there's any ethical corporation, company, whatever, that does things that to on our side of things. Like I would like to buy a telephone that isn't required to, that isn't like a Samsung or isn't an iPhone,
Right.
and all these terms of agreement, that all this small print legalese, uh, nonsense,
Yeah.
unethical. That's what I want. I would like to see big startup companies, or just big companies. I don't want to say startup, just big companies go ethical, become
Yeah.
ethical, or a new company, um, a startup, be an ethical one that provides these things, that, and in a way that we can get around uh, this tyranny, uh, you know, like the FAA. If I hope that was the right one. It might be FFA. No, it's
I
no,
don't know.
it's FAA. I believe and I think that's it. Anyway, it's they control the airwaves basically. Um, so if I would like to get around that, and I think we're going to need to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think definitely businesses and should come to the rescue if they have resources, if they have a lot of people who can definitely help share this knowledge and they see it as important. Again, like we're just sharing morality. We're just saying that everybody's equal. We're not claiming something really out there. We're not talking about even conspiracies. Like we're just talking about basic human decency. Like, do you care that somebody, your fellow man, is being coerced into doing something against their own will? you know? It's
Yeah.
really, really basic, but how many people are gonna be willing to step out of line? You realize that if a celebrity or some business does that, I mean, they're gonna make history. You know, they're gonna make a name for themselves. Not saying that they should do it for the attention or for the image, but, I mean, if you wanna live, with a destiny, you wanna feel like you've contributed to society, what better way to do that than just share the truth or share something that no business is willing to do,
Yeah.
and there's companies out there that are small, like a couple people. It's hard to operate a business nowadays because of all the costs and everything going on. I don't blame them. They're getting taxed too. It's hurting them too. And I think there's
Mhm.
solutions for them perhaps that they can also do, and then it would help their business, and then it would help the truth. Such as if they get involved with like the common law assemblies and they don't have to pay taxes, for example, because a lot of the big corporations like Amazon are not paying taxes. So it's like, how come the small, mom and pop store has to pay taxes, and they're
Mhm.
being pushed on the side. They have the small little shop, and then the Amazon has this huge warehouse. It's like it's
Unethical
crazy.
system.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
our system, but hopefully as we get more free, we can have more alternatives. That's what would happen if we become more free, but it's about initiating those steps. How do we, get to that point? So, businesses can definitely help, I agree, and just people taking general action steps, general things. Like, I didn't expect this knowledge to get out to so many people, right? We didn't this knowledge of morality, natural law, statism, this stuff is expanding very quickly because people realize how important it is, and it's growing that fast. So I mean, people may underestimate the power of knowledge and information, but this is the power of the internet. It's the power of technology. It's the power of freedom, right? We're expressing it right now.
yes. Thank you.
So let's, if you don't mind, this is like the final question. I asked everybody this question in the summit, sort of to conclude. Um, so let's go a little deeper into statism and your experience with statism. So, um, statism is a belief in authority, right? Just to reiterate, I call it mental slavery, and it leads to physical slavery. It's the belief that you should be ruled over, and that you should have somebody be the master ruler, president, minister, whatever word you want to use for the same thing, which is that they're claiming ownership over your life and property. How long would you say how long would you say you were a statist, and how did you get out of that mentality? And maybe that kind of relates to before, but
To be
to kind of
honest, I don't. To be honest, I don't think I was ever a statist. I voted a couple of times, even though I wasn't. I just did it anyway. I was thinking, okay, I'll give this a shot, and we'll see what happens. And I saw what happened, and I gave up pretty quickly because, even when I did it, I could see that, things were deteriorating, and that, um, in the back of my mind, I knew that even though you can make all the laws you want to, gun laws, really they're controlling people. It's not controlling guns. But criminals are still going to they don't care about that law. They're going to get a gun anyway. And so you want a gun to defend yourself against a criminal. So uh, a, um, it's kind of a criminal thought to want to take a good person's right to self-defense away, or not right to self-defense, but their ability to defend themselves. They still have the right, even if you've taken their ability away. They still have the right. So
so you can't give me a certain amount of years that you would say you were a statist. You were like pretty much rebellious most of your life.
I would say, yeah. I mean, my dad was in the military, and he gave me a haircut when I was 7, and asked me what I wanted to be grow up when I grew up. Before he gave me the haircut, I was growing it out already a little bit, and I was 7, and that was early 70s, um, and I was used to seeing we I was basically raised on television, and but I know now that it is the tool that it is. Um, so I don't really. Every time I watched, even though we have one in the house now, when I watch it, when I see it, I'm always like deconstructing what I'm seeing and trying to decode it.
Mm.
Um, but at age 7, when I was asked what I wanted to be when I grew up, I said a hippie because I was watching long-haired hippies with picket signs saying peace, no war, that kind of thing. And of course, that's what I want. I mean, and so I think I knew the whole time. You know,
Yeah. Sounds like me. I'm
since
a hippie.
I was had some self-awareness anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, some people would call me a hippie, got the long hair and talking about peace and
Yeah,
morality. I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but
Well, I don't see how it can be a bad thing.
Mm.
I mean, and hippie is just a label.
Yeah,
We're just men and women who want to live ethical lives and
right.
not force our ideas on other people. We don't want other people's ideas forced on us.
Yeah.
And and the quote, what is it? Good ideas don't require force. Is that right? Is that the one? I think
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, it is.
So,
Mandatory ideas, it's so good that they have to be mandatory. And,
yeah.
it's funny you mentioned before a kind of a Plato quote. It says good people don't need laws to act good, right? And bad people will find a way around those laws.
Around them.
So,
Yeah.
so what's the point?
That
It's
kind of reminds me of another one I heard, that's if a problem can be solved, then there's no need to worry. If a problem can't be solved, then worry is of no use.
Hmm.
Um, which is not exactly the same thing, but I, I don't know if you can see how that relates. Um,
Yeah, so we're gonna conclude now, okay? Because that was good. We kind of delved into everything. We left people with a lot of resources that they can download, stuff they can check out. Is there anything else that you want to go over before we end?
um, I can't think of anything right now. I'd love to do this again sometime
Yeah.
when I'm a little more together and have notes and things.
All good.
Um,
All good. Hey, you can always join the newspaper project. I encourage you to. That one you can start posting articles if you want. I'll send you the links to all that. I also want everybody else to check that out as well because it's a public newspaper, so anybody can contribute. But I'll keep count of contributions. So if you do contribute often, I can help out with that. And I will actually make videos for you if you make an article format. I'll narrate it, I'll put images over it and everything. I'm making this really easy so that way anybody can contribute, even if they want to stay completely anonymous. I'm willing to put myself out there so that the knowledge gets out there. That was my goal with that project, and it's going to come after the summit to be officially released. But we're going to prepare people now for that, which is good because that's the whole point of the summit as well, is to just get people together on the same page, say this is where we're heading. And then if we have a more community structure, it will be easy for us to take the action steps. It will be easier for us to transition to the world that we want to. So, Evan, I definitely appreciate you joining me and sharing all your ideas.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. This is Corey Enderlot, and I was here with Evan Wade. Check out more resources if you would like. Of course, you could always download more stuff. If you want to see a lot more talks like this and a lot more speakers, go to nita.one/summit. That's nita.one/summit. The End of Slavery Summit. Thank you very much for watching.